We might be able to see if we can dim them a little bit more. Yeah, we can see if we can dim the lights a little bit more if it becomes an issue. Yeah. Hey, Sarah. She has a lot on here. It's the Rotary presentation. It's the second one. When I can help you find it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm still working on the sound.
Okay.
What can I do to help?
We got the mics set up. Oh yeah, she's just right over there. Because I don't want to like start the introduction until we're good to go. It'll be just a couple of minutes. We're doing a live stream, so we're just want to make sure everything's good to go before we start. So we do appreciate your patience. Oh. Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, I can see my, oh, I do have the mic on. That might be part of it. I do have the mic on. Okay, it's further down, at least. It's gonna be a PowerPoint, and it's like all caps. I think it says like a Rotary or something. There's gonna be two in a row that have the same name, but.
It must be in one of the subfolders.
Oh, I did not catch that part. Okay.
Maybe here. Am I going too far?
Okay, there it is. Yeah, it's gonna be that second one.
Second one. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other one.
I just clicked on the wrong one?
Because that looks like that was the one from last week. Okay, that looks correct. Okay, and then I can give her her thing back. Okay. Yeah. Okay, it'll be really quick. Yeah. And what I can do is I can just hand this over to you if you prefer to use the handheld. Okay, it'll be just a second. Okay, thank you everyone for being here. I do apologize for the delay. We are here for the third week of our celebrating Wichita's Black History for Black History Month. We are doing this every Thursday at 12:30. So it's been great so far, and we do appreciate having you here. My name is Jenny. I am a librarian here at the Advanced Learning Library, and today I have with us Bonita Gooch, and she will be talking about African American journalism in Wichita and possibly Kansas in general. A little bit about Bonita, if you are not familiar with her. Since 1996, she has served as the editor-in-chief of the Community Voice newspaper, a trusted source of news and information for the African American communities of Kansas and the Kansas City metro area. As the owner, she has helped expand the readership of the Wichita-based publication to one of the most widely read non-daily newspapers in the state. Bonita is also a founding member for the Kansas Black Leadership Council and has served on the board of other community organizations like the American Red Cross and the Kansas African American Affairs Commission. In her spare time, she is also an avid tennis player and gardener. Before I hand the mic over to her, I just want to note really quick, during our Q&A session, we're going to use our ceiling mic since we're live streaming to YouTube. So if you want to see this later, you'll be able to watch it. Just make sure to like speak up a little bit. That way we can hear you on the recording and people watching later will be able to hear clearly. And we also have a program evaluation on that back table. So before you leave, you can either scan that QR code with your phone that will take you to an evaluation form, or you can fill out a paper one. That lets us know at the library what you thought of the program. And if you want to see more like that, that's the best way to get your thoughts heard. And we do read them and plan accordingly. So now, without further ado, I am very pleased to present Bonita Gooch. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's nice to see so many people here. This is really good. I didn't expect this many people, and I really didn't. And but I see a lot of familiar faces. A lot of you I don't know, but I look forward to meeting a lot of the rest of you. I'm putting on my glasses so I can see who's out here. Okay, I'm just looking at all these people. Great group of people. Well, and first I want to say thank you to the library for inviting me, and thank you for this wonderful series you're doing this month, every Thursday. So I know we have Denise Sherman next week, right? She's in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know a little bit about that too, since that's named the Rip Gooch Aviation, yes, exhibit, Black Aviators exhibit. So I do know a little bit about that. But I hope you don't mind. I've been in demand this month. You know, we get in demand with Black History Month. And so I did this presentation for the Rotary Club. And sorry, I did not change it, but it doesn't mean you weren't any less important. It was just that it was done, and it's a busy week. We do a really big paper every year for Black History. And we're working on that, and today is a deadline, and I am trying to make deadlines. So I'm not going to rush out of here, though. I'm going to give you all the time that you want for this, and I appreciate you for coming. So the way this speaks to, I will get to some Wichita history, but I think it's very important to understand the whole Black history. And so this is definitely going to be, let's see if I have the right one. Oh, why do I get rid of, how do you get rid of the little ones on the side so everybody doesn't see what's coming? I got to keep them surprised. How do you do that? I don't even know everything's coming. Uh-huh. Good. Yeah. Here we go. There we go. So this is definitely going to be a Black History moment. Is what I'm here to tell you about. Because Black history is American history, of course. And so what we're going to talk about is the importance of information, okay, and access to information. You know, before all of us could walk around with encyclopedias in our hand, information was very important to have, but it was not very easy to get to. So those of you who are my age or older, and it looks like a lot of us are here, remember things like world books and card catalogs. Do those still exist? Huh, do they? Some small libraries do? Okay, I didn't know. And then we only had TV that lasted 3 channels. Everybody knows, I only had 3 channels. And it went off at midnight. And you remember that little screen, right? So there wasn't much access to information. It was very difficult. Well, you know, but I want to take you back before even that. I want to take you back before there was phones and before there were cars and before there was radio and some of those things. And wonder and talk about, oh, yeah, we did have newspapers. I'm sorry, we do have newspapers. But, you know, newspapers were tough to get the further back you went as well, because, you know, they were few and far between. But back to this group of people. And these are slaves on some plantation. I want to say there's probably like some plantation that my great-grandfather was on and born in and was freed out of slavery in South Carolina. But can you imagine what information these people did not have? I mean, they couldn't read, they couldn't write, and information was on just a need-to-know basis. You might have some slave that was in the big house who might come back and tell somebody something that they heard, but you knew nothing. Your world was so small and limited. And so this is probably kind of where we started with the Black press. And the Black press was really formed not necessarily as much to communicate to Black people as it was to help end slavery. And so one of the first ones was, this was the absolutely first recorded Black newspaper from 1827 to 1829. It didn't run that long. It was run by abolitionists, two abolitionists, and it really spoke to the importance of freeing slavery. But after that, 1827 to 1829, there were a lot of other Black papers that started to come along. And this one was published in New York City. And I'm going to talk about the importance of that, something I've discovered in doing research for this article. So let's get the timeline. So a lot of you may know, but some who may not know, the timeline of slavery in America. So we're talking about a paper that was published in 1827. So slaves have been here for 1526 to 1827 with no information. I mean, they were just out there lost, okay? And again, this paper really wasn't meant for them. Now, 1865 is they're identifying as the end of segregation. Well, now, but everybody's gonna say, what happened to the Emancipation Proclamation? Well, no, not that, but 1863 and the Emancipation Proclamation. So that was when Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. But, his Emancipation Proclamation only freed the slaves in the South. But the South had seceded from the Union. So he really had no power to do anything. So slaves were actually freed as the Union Army went to the South, taking over the territory and freeing the slaves. And many of the slaves then joined the Union Army and fought to end slavery. So General Lee finally surrendered in, I think it was April 1863. And so then we still talk about Juneteenth, for those who want to understand Juneteenth, was 1865 in June, mid-June, when the Texas slaves found out they were free, and we kind of figure that is really the end of slavery, of all slavery in America. But here's another paper I want to talk about, which really was just a situation changer. It was the North Star, not the first one, but one that's kind of talked about a lot because of its influence. It was published from 1847 to 1860 by Frederick Douglass. Now, Frederick Douglass was a slave who was born in Maryland in 1818. And he escaped from slavery and moved to the North and went to New York, and where he began publishing this paper. Frederick Douglass basically said, who can tell our story better than us? So he began to tell the story of what it was really like to be a slave in America. He joined up with abolitionists, and then they started touring the country. He even toured overseas, talking about the end of slavery. But what he did was he really got the conversation going about slavery. And so by the time that Lincoln was about to be elected president, there really was a real going discussion about the possibility of ending slavery. But what I found out while I was researching this, and I'm going to ask after the end who all knew this, I keep reading, why are all these papers in New York? Where are we getting all these free people in New York? How are these people so free up there? But it turns out that if we go back to that timeline, New York, the state of New York, freed all its slaves by Emancipation Proclamation in 1799. I didn't know that. Yeah. And so what they did was you kind of could do, any Black person was born after that, 1799, kind of got an indentured kind of slavery for like 20 years. It was kind of that you could work your way out of slavery. But by the time they got to 1821, all of the slaves in New York City were free and emancipated. So this is why you had all these papers. So when you're talking about 1821, I think it was, somewhere in there, when they were all finally free. And we have Mr. Douglas show up in 1847, you had about 2 generations of black people that didn't know nothing about slavery because they had been free. So you talk about, he really was a special person who showed up in this role to help in slavery, or really to get the conversation going about slavery. Okay, so I put this up and talk about the post-Civil War newspaper wars. And when I say that, I didn't really mean it as much as they were fighting against each other, but they were fighting for different causes, okay? So you had the Southern newspapers versus the black press, which was starting to grow. So let me start by talking a little bit about the Southern newspapers. They were big, and they were powerful, and they were loud. And their purpose was to maintain the superiority of the white race. I mean, they weren't buying this slavery stuff. They had fought a whole war over it, and they weren't ready to let black people or the former slaves have any rights. And everything they could do, they used their newspapers towards that end. Then you have, and so you see things like this in the paper, and there were so many examples of, how they really built up this custom of, you better believe that we're going to keep the slaves down, and if you don't, you're going to be ostracized through their press. And then they reported about lynchings and things of this sort regularly in their paper, as if they were good things. Let's see, where do we go next? Okay, so the black press, obviously, one of the things they worked on was civil rights. And so some of these things that they wrote about were racial violence that was going on, bringing attention to social discrimination and legal discrimination, because we now had Jim Crow laws that were discriminating against black people. And of course, we talked about things like lynchings, but not from the standpoint that we're celebrating, but that there's another one. But that's not all that they talked about, okay? Oh, before we go there, I want to talk about the blacks leaving the South. So for those who may have, first of all, who had ever heard that about freeing the slaves in New York before? You did? I had never heard that. I was just so surprised by that. I did not know that one. So that was my Black History moment for this season, this time. I was like really shocked by that. The Exodusers, maybe many of you have heard of the Exodusers who came to Kansas. You had African Americans, mostly around the Mississippi River, who kind of went to the river, took a boat up to St. Louis and came across to Kansas, most of them. Some of them went to Colorado. This was pretty much right after the end of slavery in the early 1870s. They relocated to Kansas, about 40,000 of them. And mainly they came because they wanted to homestead and land was here and available, but they felt favorably about Kansas because Kansans had a reputation for fighting against slavery. So that was the first kind of migration out of the South. But then you had the Great Migration that ran from about 1910 to 1970, where you had people leaving the South, going to some of these major metropolitan areas where you have very large pockets of black populations to this day, but you also have a lot of successful black newspapers. And they became influencers of the movement, and also to the, and for changes in the South, and help promote changes in the South through their writing. So the expanding black press. So again, we had several powerful black newspapers who helped really with the movement. But one of them that was a really big name was the Chicago Defender, which still exists to this day. Yeah, the Chicago, yeah, by this time, we were up to about 200 black papers in the country. This really had grown in number to the number of papers across the country. Some of them were larger, some of them were smaller, but the Chicago Defender was one of the more powerful ones. But when this started, there 250 black, a lot of them are larger, smaller. But I remember my dad telling me about how he who was a poor boy who grew up in Tennessee in the South, reading the Chicago Defender. Well, Dad, how did you read the Chicago Defender? The Pullman porters would load the papers on the train in Chicago, and then they would bring them down and stop papers off at all the little cities along the way. And this became a great source of information for the African Americans in the community. They got to learn about what was going on up north, but they also, because information was still very limited, they got access to information about what was going on in the South in other areas. So I remember Dad telling me that he read the people he saw pictures of from up the north in the Chicago Defender. He knew that there were some possibilities, because in his little town where he was, he didn't see any black people doing anything. You know, it was still thumb on the black people South, and he began to dream of the possibilities. And in fact, they say that the black newspapers in the North were so influential in showing the possibilities to others that they were major league responsibility for that migration out of the South to the North. The black papers did, and to the point that it got to that some of the southern cities outlawed the sale of these newspapers in their town. Yeah. Okay, I don't see where we're going next. So these are some major, kind of post-Civil War, civil rights pictures that many of you might have seen on the TV. And we did have coverage of those kind of things by the white press, but the black press was there too, often getting beaten on the head with the rest of the people. But there was so much more than just the civil rights movement that the African American press covered. So here's a paper, and I was just looking for an old paper, and I don't have any particular affinity to this paper. I just needed one to find so we could kind of talk about, what was a black newspaper like. And I think this one we decided was dated in 1950. It's kind of hard to see. 1950, just about that time. So just talk about what would you see in a black newspaper? Okay, so let's talk about the one up in the far right. UNCF drive starts here Monday. United Negro College Fund. They were having a drive to raise money for scholarships for African American students, and they had a goal of raising $1,200. Sunday's registration day in churches. They were having voter registration drive in the churches. University of Missouri hires the first Negro instructor. Missouri was a slave state, so they were way behind Kansas. So it took them to 1950 to hire the first Negro instructor, as they say. But this is interesting news that, again, they're covering news of the South and of the rest of the country that is somehow getting to these kind of papers. This color honor students, and there's another one on the left, beach honor students, were obviously a list of students who had made the honor roll, and I would assume these are two colored schools because, their schools were very much segregated. The bottom right, and this was really interesting because I found this and I used this at a Rotary Club. This bottom group is a group of Rotarians who had some foreign exchange students come, and they took them to Savannah State College. They had two Africans, foreign exchange students. They took them there to do assembly at Savannah State College, where they sang some of their traditional songs and some of their secular songs. Let me see some of the other ones. The bottom left, which is pretty interesting. This is a story about the steamship line formed by local businessmen. Well, what it turns out is these young men, seemed very young and industrious, went up north to New York, came back with this boat, and basically started a party boat. Yeah, it was a party boat. You can see the people hanging off the boat. Okay. NAACP formulates plans for political action in Dixie, and so I guess it was a regional meeting, and they called for a 2-day meeting and decided they were going to go back to their general areas and register 2 million black people to vote. The one in the middle with the 4 ladies was a Phi Kappa Gamma sorority, and the national president and 2 other ladies were there at the airport, I guess, or I would assume, I'm not sure how the person got here, to welcome this sorority sister back from Oslo, Norway, where she had been studying abroad. Yes. And then the very top center, and this is one reason I chose this because it speaks really to the social nature, and many of you know this, of the Black community, was the Jabberwock Queen. And so this is a still kind of a lot of Delta chapters, Delta Sigma Theta sorority around the country, still do Jabberwock. And so top and center was the Miss Jabberwock in her court. But this just wants you to speak to the uplifting kind of things and society kind of things, but then the civil rights kind of thing. We're talking about registering to vote. We're talking about improving our educational. Oh, this one in the far left top, local student wins Elks contest. It was an Elks oratorial contest. And the top guy, whoever won a $1,200 scholarship back in, yes, that's what I'm saying, back in the 1950s, a $1,200 scholarship went a long way. So that was great for winning the rhetorical contest. But just speaks to some of the things that are in the paper. News affecting or potentially impacting our community, explain and update issues affecting the community, chronicling achievements, exploring challenges, telling about events in the community, sharing information about available resources, social news, and also helping readers assimilate, information about where to go for different things or programs that are available or things that were prime for the Black newspapers. And the reason, and I'm going to get to it pretty much here, is one, information is always very important, but two, this was information that wasn't being shared anywhere else. Now, if you went to a white newspaper, wasn't any of this in a white newspaper anywhere, okay? The only thing you found in the white newspaper, again, I told you what they were writing at the time. They're writing about lynchings, and they're writing about, somebody, Jim Crow voter laws and things of this sort, versus this kind of wonderful community that existed out there that was being ignored. But I was going to say, there was a point I wanted to make, I got lost. I don't remember. Okay. I don't know. Okay. Well, anyway, so I get this too. Oh, I know what it was. I'll go back real quick so we can come back to that one. It was that, I don't know if any of you guys followed, but the Kansas City Star about 2 years ago came back with a big apology. They made a formal apology to the Kansas City's Black community for how much they ignored that community through their press. And they said they just basically didn't cover anything. You Black people didn't get into the paper, basically, other than the same things that we see so often still today, crime and things of that sort. And maybe sports, but I don't even think Black sports made papers back then because there was still that separation of sports. But they talked about things that had happened in that Black community that never went unreported. Like they had a Black gentleman open up a new car dealership, and it was never reported. They had a Black bank opened. It was never reported. So these were kind of great things that were going on in their community that they didn't think deserved to be shared. And so let's go to, so why the Black press? Number one, it fills a void. Okay, and I say that still even today. It fills a void. I have people come up to me of all races that say, if I hadn't seen that in your paper, I wouldn't have known that. And so that still speaks to a need of a community paper that speaks to our issues. But why, number two, there's a sense of collective identity, commonality, and understanding that other media doesn't have that's important to our readers. In other words, what's important to us? What does it mean to us? That's very important. What does it mean to us? I'll tell people that, for example, the state government. The state government is just so big, and they're talking about so many things. They're talking about pigs out and whatever else out in bills, so many strange bills that really don't apply to us. But our objective is to find those stories that are relevant to our readers and get that information out to them, and then also to explain it to them in a way that they understand why it's important to them and why they should be paying attention. Okay. The same thing goes for, I tell people, I used to keep a story, and I don't know how I lost it, but I went out and covered a school board meeting, and the lady from the Wichita Eagle covered a school board meeting. And if you had read our stories, you would have thought we were at two different meetings. Because what was important to me that I came back and carried to our readers was totally different from what she was interested in. So it was about, they were talking about the bond election. Some of you may remember the situation. They were talking about a bond election. This was Mr. Brooks was still the superintendent. And on the bond issue, one of the big things was they were going to put air conditioners in the schools. Well, that was important to everybody. It really was. But another important part about it is that Mr. Brooks, to try to sell it, he was a smart man. He put in there that he was going to return half of the seats in the black schools in the northeast part of town to neighborhoods for neighborhood students. Well, you had a generation, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years of busing on the backs of a black community. The opportunity for our children to be able to walk across the street to a school was a big deal to our community. And so that's what I wrote about. She didn't even pick it up. It's because she didn't understand that it was an issue. And so that's the difference. But I knew it was the issue to our community because I was a child that was bused. So I could relate. The community wants news from an organization they can trust to have their back to deliver news that impacts them and to explain that impact to them. Again, I just said that one about, what is it? What does it mean to you? What's in this? Well, should I believe this? Is this something good for us? What is it? And I don't necessarily try to give opinions, but give the important facts that explains its impact on our community. And hence, this is when I put this together and I was asked to speak about why the Black press, I came back to these things. But when I looked back at it, I go, oh my, that relates to our slogan that we've had for a number of years now, that we are a trusted voice from the community's perspective. So a sense of trust that is important, that you're telling me the real deal, but also from the perspective of what's important to our community. So I think that's why you still have this group of Black newspapers that are thriving across the country, just for that same reason. They may not have that slogan, but I think that's important. So I won't go through this one. This was another Savannah paper. But what I'm going to do here is spend a little time going through some of our papers and some of the things we've done. I can't do a lot of them, and I just picked them. And this isn't the first of our papers. The paper actually started in 1995. Okay, 1995. It was started by Billy and Yvette McCrae. I always thought they'd had it longer than that. I think the first paper was April 2005. We just checked with the archives because we thought we were getting ready to celebrate our 30th anniversary this year. And I called to order a copy of the first issue. And I found out, oh, no, it didn't start till April. And then I've been with the paper since November 1996. So I'm getting to be an old hat at this now. So you've missed the first couple years here. Billy's paper looked nothing like this. We, at one point, were a fold paper, one of those kind of bigger ones. But we've been this tab size most of this time. Just kind of pick up some of the issues on this one. This was Mike Kennard's run for the county commission, and I think he ended up losing by 60 votes or something. Not 60, like 100 and something votes. And it was, so we were just talking about, reviews his close loss, but because we were all sitting around watching the votes come in early on, and he was way ahead. And then at the end, here comes all of these votes from up in Valley Center, and he ended up just barely losing. And that's been the history of that seat ever since. And we've written about it several other times, but that the fact that this district is very tough to win from the fact that we have not had a Black county commissioner since Melody McCrae Miller in the early 90s. Yeah. NAACP monitoring progress at Family Dollar. I think everyone was at the point, this was the one at 13th and Grove, and how anybody ever went in it, they knew it was trashy. It was always a mess, always a mess. I don't remember this court ruling in profiling case only minor victory. I really don't remember this profiling case, but obviously there was, and whoever this officer was, we revealed him. I'll tell you that. Okay, this one, 2007. This one, we went around and took pictures of the nastiest and dirtiest and trashiest lots in the Northeast community and did the dirty 20 list. And so you didn't want to be on the dirty 20 list, okay? But you see, we had some really bad, I mean, there was a lot of talk about cleaning up the community. Remember that one guy was up in kind of off of 13th Street, between, maybe about Chautauqua? They had that really, you don't remember that one? Oh, took forever. All the neighbors were complaining, rats were coming out and everything. This is the ban the N-word movement. This was a barber who started, and I don't remember what his name is, but he started this thing where you came into his shop, you said the N-word, you had to pay. So that was the story about that, okay? And Johnson's win in a case against the city, this was Pam and George Johnson, who had a lawsuit against the city and that they won again. So I don't know, more summer youth jobs needed. I don't know who that's in the top. I'm not sure. Okay, an election guide inside. State of Black women. Now a little bit different look. We added some color as we went along. I'm not quite sure what was in the State of Black women, but I know we did a State of Black Kansas. That was a really good piece. I couldn't find that one a couple of times. That was just great information and stats on the condition of Black people in the state of Kansas. This one we did for about 6 years, a thing called the Financial Freedom Expo in conjunction with the NAACP, where it was a financial literacy supplement, but we also did a half day of live workshops in an expo in the community around financial literacy. This it wasn't our Black History piece, but it spoke to the 1919 Red Summer when the troops came back and they were being treated so bad. It was just a summer of violence all across the country. And I know kind of picked up a Black history story even in August. Just to see, Hutchinson hosts the 130th Emancipation Proclamation celebration. This is something that's going on. It's been going on in Hutchinson, Kansas for 130 years, an annual kind of homecoming celebration there that we cover. Again, I'm sure not very much other coverage for that outside of Hutchinson. Home Sweet Home, that was a really good piece we did on home ownership. And it spoke to, what kind of credit do you need? What does credit mean? What's a debt to income ratio? A lot of things of this sort about how do you get ready to buy a home and what is it and what is the whole process? And I remember running into a lady, by this time we're up to 2019, we had expanded into Hutchinson, and I ran into a lady at an expo there and she said, oh my God, thank you so much. She says, I'm not ready yet, but I now know what I need to do to get ready. So those are the kind of information we try to give people. Grub and Groove, a great concert for about 3 or 4 years we had here. Who's playing at the concert? And I don't know what Dotson, right? Pastor Dotson was up to. I think he had a book he put out. Kansas legislature is talking sentencing reform. So again, we follow the legislature. Section 8 opening soon. This is the Reflector, which is the one I'm working on. I'm trying to get to press today, which is our Black History supplement every year. And body cameras activated. This again, we're in Kansas City now that they had added body cameras. 40 Acres to the Mule Congress is talking reparations. Well, John Conyers has been tried for 30 years till he died, and they're still starting to talk about it. I know we wrote about that last paper. Mary Dean made a presentation Tuesday at the City Council. Just only reason I changed this, put this one, is because it reflects a little bit change in style where we started really going more with a local front, where we would put people from the community as a local coverage, and I'm kind of enjoying that. Who can vote on Kansas abortion issue, August 2nd. I mean, we really tried to build that one up because we thought that was going to be one that our community was going to sleep, but we didn't, and I'm so glad. And then this was one from this year, a new logo, and again, really building more on that community front with Bernard Knowles, where we were talking about the development around the WSU campus and how it's happening kind of without our communities making any way or being involved in any way. I think that's about the last one. So anyway, we're finally getting to the history of Wichita. It's Black press. We weren't the only one, people, and we haven't been the only one. Can you imagine all these Black papers have been in Wichita? This is the history of all the Black papers in Wichita. One of the biggest, longest running ones was the one, where is it? Mr. Sims' paper, the Negro Star. From 1919 to 1952, he ran. And I always keep trying to keep up with remember how many years that was, and try to figure out if I think I can make it. When I started off and I first saw that list, I said, oh, my goal is to try to see if I can beat him. I don't know if I'm gonna make it, guys. I gotta get to retiring sometime soon. That doesn't mean the paper goes away, though. But this is some interesting, some of these that I can just talk about, and I do have kind of the just the masthead for a number of them. But Joe's, everybody knows who Joe's is. Remember, come on, Marvin, I know you know all these people. That was that little thing Joe Gardenhire did. Yes, Joe Gardenhire did that paper. Yeah, now I'm here from a lot of this little group on. Like, I remember, well, of course, I remember 67214. Yeah, that was a magazine that was kind of printed by some young people. Abu, what was his name? Habu or something was his name. He was a WSU student who came here and published this magazine. It was pretty cool. It was really different and innovative for its time. Heart of the City was the one published by the late Senator Gail Finney. She came to town and reported that, and that was a magazine format as well. I worked for, by the way, I got my start in journalism back up in the Wichita Times with Jack Hudson. And that was, Jack Hudson, the Wichita Times. And I think he had several generations of names for that. What was the one who started the Black Arts Festival? Leonard Garrett. Which one was his? Wichita Times? See, you see why I had to have the real experts here. You see who I'm calling on. Okay, which one was he? The Wichita Times or the News Hawk? I think he was the News Hawk. He was the News Hawk. Yeah, and I think that one was gone because he had died before I got here. Now, when I got around, the Pages. That was one that was it really was a Black directory, which was done by Sherry Rito. Sherry Rito, remember that one? Yeah, Sherry Rito. Then the Urban News was, and I need to update this. Obviously, I did this before, was a kind of a copy off the copy machine and stapled, and she'd run it to your door, which was Annie Works did that. Everybody remembers Annie Works did the Urban News, the Pages. There was one that was still the Ebony Shopper. Now, the Ebony Shopper was around when I got here. He didn't last much. I never met the guy, but I may have seen him one time, and I saw very few copies of it. But those are some of the few that have been around that I can connect with. That's while I was here. Not like anything. I didn't get back here, guys. I didn't return to Wichita in 1996. So anything before that, I might have missed. But you can see that people worked hard at trying to get the news out into the community. Now, the Negro Star, which was the Sims were out of the South. They came here from, I think, Mississippi or Alabama, where they had a newspaper there. but the people didn't like what they were talking about down there. And when I say the people, I don't mean the black people, I mean the Klan kind of people. And they burned them out. And they realized that they better get out of town. So they found their way to Wichita, and they published here. And they were just a great asset to the community. There was the two brothers. Marvin, come on, you know the Sims, didn't you? The Mr. Sims brothers. You didn't know them? You didn't? Oh, I thought you would have known them. But anyway, yeah, because Mr. Sims, one of the Sims brothers is in the Wichita Business Hall of Fame. And I don't mean the Black Business Hall of Fame. He's in the Wichita Business Hall of Fame. He was pretty, and then the other brother was the first African-American member of the Wichita School Board. So they were influential people in the Wichita community. So that's the papers. So, but anyway, I'm just going to, ooh, it's getting late. Okay. I think she talked to, I'll run quickly, talked about who we are, multi-platform, print, digital, and social. We serve Kansas City metro area. On our digital platform, we get large pockets of followers out of Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, and California, because that's where a lot of our folks have left and gone to. We print 13,000 issues bi-weekly, which again makes us one of the largest non-daily distribution papers in the community, in the state of Kansas. Monthly page views on our website average about 45,000 per month. Strong social following on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we also post on LinkedIn and our YouTube channel. Our circulation is free, always free. And, but our main source of income is print advertising. And Cornell, hold up your hand. If you want to buy an ad, that's the man right there. Okay, that's our salesman who's been with us for a number of years now. He's our longest serving employee. Main source of income. Okay, staff of 6. We have a general manager. His title is really publisher, but I always call him general manager because a lot of people don't know what a publisher does. I serve as editor-in-chief. We have a part-time Wichita reporter, PJ Griekspoor, who's an excellent and experienced reporter and editor, Kansas City reporter, who is full-time, Cornell, our sales representative, and our office manager, and a very part-time copy editor and social media assistant. And if you want to find us, we're located at 2918 East Douglas. What's going on with us looking to the future? The future for newspapers, you guys have heard, they're struggling. We're no different. And you got to figure out how you're going to make it digital, and that's it. Everything's about digital. Everything you see, we're talking about the future is not how to enhance this print product, but how do we enhance our digital product that we offer. And so we're going to continue our growth outside of Wichita predominantly through our digital. When we first went into Kansas City, I had a really big goal of a really big print distribution, but I really changed that, even though actually at this point, more than half of our distribution is in the Kansas City metro area. But we're not going to put any more out. We're just trying to push people more towards digital and online. More diverse and creative mix of digital products, growth beyond news to more diverse products. Maybe it doesn't have to be such direct news as a thing. Maybe it's more information. Maybe it's just more fun and entertaining. But I hope that everything that we do is informative in some way, educational in some way. Add new brands targeting different audiences. So maybe it isn't just that, I'm not saying right now that I'm going to get rid of the African-American market. Hopefully they will be big readers of us, but maybe it's more young people, or maybe it's the seniors, or I'm not sure. We're just looking at things now. And then also the future is how do we transition me out of this? Okay, yes, how do we transition Bonita to retirement? And then the challenges, the movement away from print. This is just a challenge. How do you get from print and still make enough income? And that's a challenge. And that's why newspapers are suffering. You know, how do we get rid of all this print? We based a model on print advertising. Print advertising is going away, and the digital advertising isn't giving us enough money to support it. Need to decrease dependency on print advertising as a source of income. So how do we build other sources of income? increasing salaries and more competition for quality candidates. I mean, salaries are going off the roof, and you can't hardly get an employee. 2020, I was able to hire a reporter, no problem. 2021, I was able to hire a reporter. And since then, I have struggled to even get anybody who will consider you. I mean, you offer them a job and they won't come, and we pay decent. I mean, we're not top paying, but one thing for sure, we're going to have to go up because we just can't get anybody. Limited staffing to expand our product and mixed offerings. We keep trying to do more, but we're not adding staff. And how do you continue to do more and add on to the social media and add on to digital and add on to video and all these things, but you're already stretched. And limited staffing decreases the amount of time we have for engaging with our community and our readers. Since we're so stressed in keeping this other stuff out, the amount of time we used to have to just be with our community has gone down. And how you can support us, if you're interested, read us online, sign up and receive our newsletter or our electronic edition. If you want to not have to look for this paper, all you have to do is go on our website. You won't be there long before it'll pop up and say, do you want to subscribe to the newsletter or to the digital copy? Just fill it in. It's just your name and your email address. Is real simple, and we email you out. In fact, you get it first, the electronic copy as soon as it's done. And we do a newsletter every Monday that supplements us because we're a bi-weekly newspaper. So that helps. Share your news with us. That's how the other papers and other media get stuff. Somebody comes and tells them, come tell us. We really appreciate it. Tell others about us. Become a financial supporter. Also, if you're on our site, it'll pop up and say, you want to donate? Hey, we take money. Everything is free, but we have no problems taking money. And advertise with us. So if you're a business or you have an employer or a community organization, consider advertising with us. And this is the end of it. That's my contact information if anybody wants to get a hold of me. That's it. Any questions? Yes.
I'm wondering what engagement do staffers or writers for the Community Voice have with the Wichita State campus? I'm just curious if there's any.
I have over the years used interns from WSU. I'd like to do more, I really would. Again, that's even competitive. I had a kid come over to me, wanted to be, since the beginning of the year, wanted to do a photography internship. He sent it out to all of us media, and everybody responded to him so fast. He had his choice of where he was going. So, but I want to speak about two things. One, I'm getting old, I need retired people. One, I want to talk about, I know what they go for, is we have a new program. There's an article in the paper on our website about it called the Documenters Program. Now, this is funded by the Community Foundation. So we are looking for people in the community. We have paid, thanks to the Community Foundation, to go out and cover community meetings and come back, take notes. You're not having to be a writer. You're just supposed to take notes, summarize your notes, and come back, and we'll all post them so that they become a source of information for the community, for people who can't get out to these meetings. Then it helps us because we might be able to see some things to pick up on because everybody doesn't have the staff anymore to send somebody out to cover all these meetings. So I know a lot of you in here are regulars at these meetings anyway. So why not get paid? So we do have money to pay that. So that's a brand new program. So if you know of anybody, ask them to call our office and let's see if we can get you, because we definitely want to have a diversity in those, because it's just not us. It's like the Hispanic paper, I think the Golden Agers, Active Agers, And I'm not sure, it's about 4 of us newspapers that are together for that project. So if you know of somebody, it's a nice little way to make a little extra money. Some of my seniors, they got the time. Okay, there you go, there you go. Okay, there you go, Miss Frankie. So that's there. I think that was my immediate thought. When I heard about this, I said, I got these seniors, they're out there. They're out there at these meetings, they're fighting the cause. I'd like to get you guys some money. Some of the other papers, the first thing they said was they wanted to get the college kids, well, and give them opportunities. So both worked. The other is we are part of an organization called the Wichita Journalism Collaborative. And the library is a part of the Wichita Journalism Collaborative, which is about 8 publications. We have funding also from the Community Foundation. And what it allows us to do to pull our resources on stories. And what we decided as an organization was to make the best impact is that we would focus on one topic at a time and concentrate our stories in that area. And that maybe through this concentrated effort and sharing our stories amongst each other, we could make a greater impact on an issue. The issue we are working on now is housing, which is a very broad issue. And it is a very major issue. There's just so many things to be concerned. I will be speaking on a panel the 26th, I think it was 2 weeks from last Monday. I don't remember where. I don't remember where it's going to be. It's on our website, I know. Where we're going to be talking about, Daniel Johnson's going to be on there also talking about housing issues. So if you guys would like to attend that one, okay? But looking for interns, looking for people who want part-time writing jobs. Yes.
I was flipping the channels the other night and I saw something on Underground Railroad. And they're digging out a city that's just north of Kansas City, in Kansas. That was an important part of some of the escapes from the South on the Underground Railroad. Do you have any information on that?
No, I hadn't heard that one.
I wrote down the name of the town, but I didn't bring it with me, so I can't remember.
Well, you know, we did have a few black towns in Wichita besides Nicodemus, and I can't remember. There's one right outside of Manhattan, I know. But a lot of blacks settled more out in that northwest Kansas. But the one that was right outside of Manhattan, I met a lady there. And then there were pockets and communities, quite interestingly. I was trying to do some research for this Black History piece, but I just don't know if we're going to have the space for it, on Johnson County. And it's kind of a unique, one of the things I'm writing about is the HFA, the FHA, no, which one? Housing, FHA, which is, the Federal Housing Association, I'm saying. And their discriminatory policies. And the impact they've had, the long-lasting impact those policies had on our community. And one of the stories is about redlining and what really is redlining and where the redlining came from, and that it actually came from the federal government. And that, but anyway, I was going to kind of talk too about integrating Johnson County, because Johnson County was formed, the other was about racial covenants. Johnson County was formed as a new development, one of these new suburbs, with about 90% of all the homes in Johnson County had racial covenants on it. And so black people couldn't live in Johnson County. Yeah. And so I was kind of doing some of those kind of stories and found in that research a couple of pockets of black communities. There are 2 little pockets of black communities that they had in the Johnson County area, but I don't think this is what you were talking about. That's south of really, yeah.
This was north of Kansas City.
Yeah, north Kansas City.
And they're digging it out right now.
Okay.
They have,
I'm gonna go find out. I'm gonna report my Kansas City guy on it. See what's going on. That sounds interesting. I wish you knew more. Can't remember anymore, huh?
I'm gonna write down your telephone number, and I wrote that down at home, but I
Okay.
didn't.
Do you remember what channel you were listening to? What channel you were listening to? What channel? TV channel. You said you heard it on TV?
Yeah,
Yeah.
or it was on,
Was it PBS?
no, it wasn't a national, it was a
Local?
special,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry, I brought it
Okay.
up now.
No, that's a great, it sounded like a great story, and I asked share a story, so that sounded great. I want to know about that. Anything else?
But
Yes.
it wasn't a few years ago that they, dug out or discovered the Cordero.
The town is no longer in existence,
Yeah.
and they're digging the place out.
You sure they're not talking about the
And they're
Cordero?
finding stuff.
Maybe, are you thinking about the Cordero ruins? The Cordero ruins, does that sound familiar? Because they just got a lot of money. There's some money finally going towards the Cordero ruins. The Cordero ruins were along the Missouri River, and so what you had was, since Missouri was slave and Kansas was free, there was a community of Native Americans, and the slaves would try, and if you could stand there and look across the Missouri, you know how close Kansas and Missouri are in the Kansas City area, and the slaves would come across at that point. And so at that, we've done stories on this in Black history, they built up a wonderful community up there. And with the only HBCU, historically black college, has ever been in Kansas, which was Western University, was built on the site of Cordero ruins. But they basically made it, it's pretty much gone to nothing. And so if you go there, and I've been there to see, there's not much left to see. They can dig something up, but they're not going to dig up much because they just let it. It was a really thriving university. We have, oh boy, don't even ask me. I've interviewed a lady here who went to Western University, and unless I missed something, I know she's still alive. She's probably about 102 years old now. Yeah, I can't. She went to church with Dad, St. Matthew. I just can't come up with her name, but she went to Western University. Yeah, which was a grand place. And they turned out some fabulous. They had a very strong music program and turned out some excellent people. Nationally, they were famous around music. I know it's past 1:30, but anybody else? Sure. Okay. Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, I bet you it was Cordero ruins. That's probably what you're talking about.
I'm talking about the 50s and 60s in Wichita.